All right, morning, time for yin. Okay, so today, if you have a block or two, great. If you don't, I'll give alternatives. If you have a strap or something that could be used like a yoga strap, maybe grab that. Um, Ideas are uh, belts of robes are a good idea, or any belt really. Um, and then if you don't have that, you could use like a dish towel or hand towel, something that size, or even like a t-shirt could work too. Okay, we're going to start with a strap or something like it. So grab that, just set it off to the side of your mat, come down onto your back, soles of the feet on the mat to start. And let's just bring the arms down by the sides, palms to face up, close the eyes, take a deep breath in through the nose. Exhale out through the mouth. Two more like that. Inhale in through the nose. Exhale out through the mouth. Inhale in through the nose. And back out through the mouth. This time in through the nose. Hold it at the very top. Exhale back out through the nose. Inhale in through the nose. And back out through the nose. Keep going. Ujjayi breath. Grab your strap, loop it around the sole of the right foot. So take the right foot, place it into the strap, grab onto the strap with both hands and choke up on the strap. So you're bringing the hands closer to the foot. Try to line up the right heel with the hip. So don't bring the leg as close as you can toward the chest. And if for some reason the leg's way out, so the heel's way away from the behind the hip, then bend the knee and you'll still get an opening in the backside of the leg, the hamstring and the glute area. So you bend the knee if the leg is way out in front of you and you can't get the heel over the hip. And we'll start with this to start to lengthen the backside of the right leg. Reverse the blood flow in the leg, which is great for a lot of standing, walking, or sitting, especially when you don't get the opportunity to go back and forth between the two. Try to stay with the same breath that we started with. Heads down on the mat. Make sure you're resting. Even though you might start to feel a deep opening beginning to happen on the right leg, which takes time. Left foot can stay on the mat. You could extend the left leg out in front of you, but observe the lower back. If you feel like you're taking away space from the lower back when you extend the left leg, then keep the sole of the left foot on the mat. That always keeps the lower back spacious. So something to play with and be honest about too with yourself. Sometimes our egos start to take over and we tell ourselves we can do something that maybe we can, but isn't the best option. You'll start to slide the sole of the left foot back onto the mat if it's not there already. Place the left foot into the strap, set the right foot down onto the mat. And we're starting the same way we did on the first side. So sole the right foot stays on the mat, line up the left heel with the hip, try to keep the leg there. And then same thing on this side. If for some reason the heel is way behind the hip, way out in front of you, then bend the knee until you get that opening on the left hamstring and glute area. If you're able to keep the leg straight, great. Let's change the hands a little bit. So you're going to keep the tension in the strap, but slide the hands back if your strap is long enough so that the elbows can rest on the mat. Upper arms rest on the mat, but the strap is still taut. And if your strap isn't long enough to do that, keep the strap taut, reach up toward the foot. That's still a good place to be. Sometimes I'll see people grabbing the strap with both ends of the strap with one hand, and we want to stick with two for this one. Left heel is pressing up toward the sky. It doesn't have to be as hard as you can go. Just bring the toes down toward the face a little bit just so you get some length while we're opening up those muscles on the back side of the left leg. And extend the right leg forward. See what that feels like. If your lower back feels compromised at all, bring the sole of the right foot back to the mat. And bring the sole of the right foot to the mat if it's not there already. Take the strap off of the left foot. Bring the knees in toward the chest. You can rock side to side a little bit. And set the feet down onto the mat. Roll over to one side. Use the hands to bring yourself up to seated. Once you get to seated, let's bring the soles of the feet together and the knees wide, coming into butterfly. So the closer in the feet come in toward the body, the more intense this is. So find a gentle place to be with it. Feet are together, soles of the feet. If you need to shift side to side to get even on the sit bones, do that. Sit up tall. Knees are going down toward the mat. So that's where you start to feel some length on the inner thighs and the hips start to open. Start to hinge forward. Chest is going forward over the toes. You can flare out the elbows if the chest comes down low enough. Let the head and the neck go. And there's not a lot of force with this. So find a gentle place to be where you're still feeling a light opening happening. One that'll be constant over the length of the hold. You can close the eyes. Listen to the sound of your breath going in and out through the nose, moving up and down the back of the throat. And start to bring the head and chest back up to seated. Use the hands to bring the knees back together. And you'll come to hands and knees facing forward on your mat. Coming into child's pose. So big toes together, sit the hips back as much as the knees will allow. You can always keep the hips up high. Stretch the arms out in front of you. Bring the forehead down to the mat. Try to work the arms and hands forward, but still pulling the shoulders back toward the hips. You want to feel lots of length in the back side of the body, plenty of space for the neck. So keeping the shoulders away from the ears gives your neck plenty of space. Press down into the whole hand, especially the inner edge of the hand, the index thumb side of the hand. Trying to press down all of the knuckles so they're not curling up away from the mat. Fingers are spread evenly, even the pinky finger. And if your knees are okay, keep pulling the hips back toward the heels, trying to get them to touch. And what you'll find with child's pose is there's a opening on the upper body that happens. There's a hollowing of the underarm, so you can actually open up that area of the body. Can get into the hips, lower body joints, knees, tops of the feet, ankles, hips. And start to lift the head up, looking forward. Bring the forearms down to the mat. So elbows and palms of the hands are down on the mat, facing straight forward. Come forward so you stack the shoulders over the elbows, and then step the feet back behind you, lengthening the legs. Set the hips down onto the mat, tops of the feet to the mat. Push the chest forward, point the tail back. So pointing the tail back is an important cue for keeping the length in the lower back. And you're in your first back bend of this practice, Sphinx pose. So you're broadening across the collarbones, the chest, bottom tips of the shoulder blades are pushing the chest forward. Legs are stretching back behind you, tail pointing back toward the heels. And while the hips press down, the belly gently lifts away from the mat so it's not pressing into the mat. And as you press down into the forearms and the hands, it's like you're trying to slide the mat back behind you. And ease up a little bit since it's yin and you know you have a longer hold ahead. Gaze can be down the bridge of the nose, or you can close the eyes if you can do that without collapsing the chest. And if you need a break, rest the head down. You can just stack the hands and rest the head down. Take as long of a break as you need. Come back into it when you feel ready. And start to rest. Lie the chest down onto the mat. You can either bring the arms down by the sides and turn the head to one side or stack the hands, rest the forehead on top of the hands. You can let the ankles roll out. Maybe the toes start to point in toward one another. Let all the muscles in the legs go. Letting the mat and the ground underneath you completely support the body. You don't need to hold yourself anywhere. So we'll come into another back bend. I'll give you two options. Option A is if you have two blocks. Option B, hang out where you're at, and I'll come back to you and give you another option if you're doing a back bend without any blocks. So if you have two blocks, you're coming up onto hands and knees. You're grabbing your two blocks. You're bringing one block on the medium height right in front of you, and the other block on the tallest height ahead of that one. So more toward the top of the mat. And then come to seated, turning away from the blocks. So the blocks will be back behind you. Hips and soles of the feet are down on the mat. Blocks are set up behind you. You'll come down onto the forearms and elbows, and you'll feel this first block right away. Try to get the bottom tips of the shoulder blades right on that block. And then when you do, you can start to lie back. You'll feel the chest lift and spread. Grab the other block with the hands, the taller one, and place that underneath the head. So you want to feel like the block's completely on the mat. It's not tilting onto one edge. Arms can come down by the sides, palms face up, and you're in another back bend. If so, stay there and then ignore me. I'm going to help the other people that are practicing without blocks. So if you don't have blocks, come to hands and knees and get the thighs vertical. So that means hips right over the knees. You'll bring the forearms and elbows down to the mat. Right here, hug the belly in so you feel that length in the lower back. That's really important for your back bend. And then try to keep the hips right over the knees so the lower body won't move at all. Elbows will start to move forward. You'll start to feel an upper body opening. As soon as you do, rest the forehead on the mat and you're in melting heart pose. So another deep back bend, upper body opening. Stay here, keep the eyes closed. If you're on your back with the blocks underneath you, stay there. Everyone's in some sort of back bend with or without props. And if you're on your back with the soles of the feet on the mat, you could extend the legs forward. That'll deepen the intensity of the shape. So if it feels like it's too much, then walk the soles of the feet back in. You also want to make sure if you have the legs out in front of you that the glutes are going forward toward the heels, not back toward the shoulders. That'll take away any discomfort you could be feeling in the lower back. And if you're on elbows and knees, forearms and knees, hugging in the belly is important for the lower back. Even though it feels like it might feel better to bring the belly down toward the mat, it's too much of a dip in the lower back, too much sway. And if you're on your back with blocks underneath the back, start to walk the feet in so that you bring the soles of the feet to the mat. Bring the elbows and forearms down to the mat. Lift the head so you're looking forward, and then start to walk yourself up onto the hands. Set the blocks off to the side. And then come on down onto your back. If you're on hands and knees with the elbows down on the mat, start to walk the elbows back so they're underneath the shoulders. And then one hand at a time, come up to hands and knees. You'll turn around, come to seated, soles of the feet to the mat, come on down onto your back. And then you could keep the soles of the feet on the mat. See what it feels like to extend the legs out in front of you. Maybe lifting the chest to get the shoulder blades underneath you. You can close the eyes and just feel the spine settle. If your lower back's tender, definitely keep the feet on the mat, knees bent. Place the hands on the body. You can either do left hand on the heart, right hand on the belly, or two hands in one place if that feels like it would be more soothing. Start to walk the feet in, soles of the feet to the mat if you haven't already. And press into the feet, scoot the hips over to the left, bring the knees over to the right. So coming into a spinal twist. This can be a lot to ask of the lower back if there's already something going on there. So you could put something underneath that bottom knee. It could be pillows, blankets, a block, whatever you have, and that'll lessen the twist. And the knees can go up as high as you want them until you feel like that's a decent twist in your body. Another option is to take something between the knees that also keeps the width across the lower back. So that could be something to play with. Left arm reaches back behind you. Maybe the gaze goes over the left arm if your neck is okay with that. Right hand can rest on the body somewhere comfortable. And if you don't have any props, you just keep the knees together, knees going in to the right, chest going to the left. You'll start to bring the head back to center. Soles of the feet to the mat. Set any props off to the side if you're using them. And let's bring the knees in toward the chest. So we were in that twist for a few minutes. Bring the knees in toward the chest. Hang on to the knees with the hands, keeping the knees and the feet together. Just start to move the knees around in a circle. Feeling the hips move around underneath you. Switch the direction. Go the other way with your circles. Set the feet back down onto the mat. Press into the feet, lift and scoot the hips over to the right. Bring the knees over to the left. Maybe a block or two underneath that bottom knee, pillows, blankets, bolsters, whatever you have, or between the knees. Ideally, what you did on the first side. So maybe you didn't have anything, and that's fine. Right arm reaches back behind you. Maybe you start to look to the right, although you don't have to do this if it doesn't feel good on this side. Left hand rests on the body somewhere. And you start to drift into this twist. Eyes softly open or closed. And start to bring the head back to center. Soles of the feet will make their way onto the mat again, finding center on your back. Start to bring the knees in toward the chest, grabbing onto the knees with the hands. Keep the knees and the feet together. Go the opposite way with your circles, so the other way than when you would typically start, just to even things out. Same counter we did before. And switch directions, go the other way. Set the feet onto the mat, roll over to your right side, use the hands to bring yourself up. You're coming to hands and knees again. So once you come to hands and knees, have your strap nearby and within reach if you're on hands and knees, and a block or two nearby. You might need those. And then bring the knees and the feet all the way together. So inner edges of the feet are touching, inner knees are touching. Tuck the toes underneath you. Start to walk the hands back toward the legs, and you're putting some weight on the feet with the toes tucked. Inner edges of the feet are still touching. And then as you go back, some of us need to move manually the fourth and fifth toe so they're still pointing forward. Maybe you keep the hands on the mat because this is a tight thing. Your feet are tight and this is a good enough opening. Some of you can come all the way up, hands on the thighs, and you can sit all the way up with the heels, the head right over the heels, hips sitting on the heels. All right, interlace the fingers. So palms of the hands together, interlacing the fingers right in front of you. And then you can start to move with the fingers interlaced, move the hands around, starting to get into the wrists. So just the hands move, maybe a little bit of the forearms, but your elbows stay still. And then see if you can go the other way. Not as easy. And then release that. Turn the left fingers to point behind you. You're trying to line up this wrist with the left elbow. So left elbow, left wrist in line. Take the right hand, bring it on the four fingers, and you'll start to bend the fingers back toward the forearm, starting to get into that left wrist, opening it up. Keep breathing in and out through the nose. I know you've got your toes underneath you. You could come to the tops of the feet when you want to, but see if you can hang in there, especially if you've done this with me a few times. Okay, move to the thumb. So maybe 2, 3 fingers on the thumb. Same thing we just did with the 4 fingers, but now you're bringing the thumb toward the forearm. Try to keep the left wrist in line with the elbow. All right, hurry, switch sides. Bring the left hand to the right 4 fingers, wrist in line with the elbows. Open up that wrist, forearm area. Keep breathing deeply in through the nose, back out through the nose. And right thumb. So 2, 3 fingers, maybe 1 finger, see what you need. And bring the hands back down to the mat. Untuck the toes, tops of the feet to the mat. You can tap the tops of the feet on the mat just to get them going back the other way. You'll sit back onto the heels. So see if this works. You'll want to just because you want to put some weight on the feet going the other way. But if for whatever reason your knees don't like it, grab a block, sit up on a block instead. You can go up as high as you want. Grab your strap, reach the right arm up overhead, but you're hanging onto the strap. And then hang the strap between the shoulder blades and bring the left arm out to the side. So palms facing behind you on the left hand, thumb side of the hand is down. Bring the left arm behind the back and then start to reach up the back as far as you can. Grab onto the strap and hug the outer elbows in. So chest is lifted, gaze is forward so that you can keep that right arm back behind the head, starting to get into the shoulders. This is a deeper shoulder opening, but we've done lots of back bends and opening up of the front chest and back shoulders. So now we'll get into a different area. Try not to puff out the lowest front ribs, hug the belly in, lengthen the tail, still rising up through the crown of the head. And if you feel like you overcommitted, the hands can get farther apart. So you can lower the left hand down the strap if you want to. But left elbow's going down and back, right elbow's hugging in toward the ear and pointing up at the same time. Keep the strap in the left hand, the bottom hand, and just release the arms down by the sides. Feel the difference in one shoulder versus the other. One might feel higher than the other. Take the strap in the left hand, reach it up overhead, hang the strap between the shoulder blades so you're bending at the elbow. Right arm goes out to the side, palm faces behind you, thumb side of the hand points down. And then bring that arm behind the back. Start to work the hand up the back. When you feel like you get to a good place for you on this side, grab onto the strap. So both hands are holding the strap, arms hugging in toward the body. Gaze is forward, chest is forward. Again, those lowest front ribs come in, belly hugs in, and then you lengthen from the tail going down toward the mat, crown of the head rising up. So this is cow face on the upper body, cow face pose or Gomukhasana. It's a great shoulder opening, can be fairly intense. You're opening up the shoulders going in two different directions at the same time. And it's a great way to set up your flow practice for binds, half binds, full binds with the arms. Last few breaths here. Hug that left elbow in toward the ear, point it up, right elbow down and back. And release the arms. You can set the strap down off to the side. You can take some shoulder rolls, moving the shoulders around in circles, and then go the other way. Bring the hands down in front of you, coming back up to hands and knees. Bring the feet over to one side and come to seated on your mat. So legs are out in front of you, which should feel really nice. We were on the knees for quite a bit. Grab onto the back of the left thigh, open the left knee out to the side, take the sole of the left foot and just bring it inside of the right leg. So right leg still out in front of you, toes are pointing up. Reach the arms up overhead. Start to fold over the right leg. So hands can come down to the mat. If they can touch the leg, great. If your foot's easy to reach, that's another great option. Maybe you take that. And you have a strap. If you have any lower back stuff, and it's bothering you to fold forward over the leg, loop the sole of the right foot. You can keep the chest up and press the foot into the strap. And this is a nice way to still get that length on the right side of the leg as you work that left knee down toward the mat. So either way, chest up or chest down, you can get into the same areas of the body. If you're okay with folding forward and grabbing the foot, try that. Head comes down toward the knee. Sometimes when we're on our mat and these longer holds, the mind starts to wander. But we are trying to get control of our minds, the swirl. If that's happening for you and you're struggling, trying to bring your attention back to your mat, back to your body, you have to start to involve the senses. So start with the breath, slowing it down. That helps slow down the mind. Maybe close the eyes so you take away any distraction. And then what do you feel? Where are you feeling this pose? What's starting to open? How are things starting to change? Maybe there's a difference when you stay in your body, both mentally and physically, with the pose than when just the body's in the pose and the mind wanders off. Having the ability to control our own minds, especially when we need to, is a powerful tool. And controlling your breath is always the first step. Start to walk the hands back in, coming back up to seated. Use the left hand to bring the left knee back up. Extend the leg out in front of you. We'll switch sides. Grab onto the back of the right thigh, sole the right foot, bring the foot inside the left leg. Reach the arms up, center the chest with the left toes, fold forward. Unless you're doing the strap variation, loop the sole of the left foot with the strap and come into the shape. Let the head and the neck go if you're folding forward. Otherwise, spine long. Pull back onto the strap the same way we did when we first started this practice. When you were on your back, you want to keep that strap taut and your back just as straight as if it were lying down on the mat. You'll start to bring yourself back up to seated. Bring the right knee back to center using the hand and extend the right leg out in front of you. So hands back behind you, soles of the feet to the mat. You probably need to scoot yourself forward so the hips are more toward the center of the length of the mat. Come on down onto your backs. Rest the head down onto the mat. Stay with me on this one. We're going to slowly go deeper and deeper into this next shape, but we're starting out really easy. So bring the knees in toward the chest. Open up the knees wide. So keep the hands on the knees. See if you can get the knees wider than the torso. And if that's easy, go a little bit wider. Not as wide as you can possibly go, but hopefully wide for you means wider than the torso. So that way we stay in the hips. Feel the hips down on the mat. You might even have to roll the hips forward a little bit so the tail stays down toward the mat. Chest is open, shoulder blades are on the mat. So you're in a version of happy baby. Switch the grip of the hands so that you grab onto the backs of the thighs. And now you can point the feet up toward the sky. So feet are flexed. So it's as if you're pushing the ceiling or sky away from you with the feet. Knees are still wider than the torso. You don't want them to come closer together. So you can relax the feet, just make sure they still stay flexed. It's not like the soles of your feet are working too hard. Tail still going down toward the mat. Don't let it curl up. We want to stay in the hips. And the hands on the backs of the thighs. You could bring the hands to the backs of the calves. So my fingers are on the outer part of the leg and thumbs on the inner part of the leg. Knees are still wider than the torso, tail still going down toward the mat. And notice the difference between the hand placement of having the backs of, you can always go back to the backs of the thighs. Okay, maybe you go so that you're closer to the ankles or even on the ankles. Knees are wide. If your tail's curling up or your head's coming up, you've gone too far. So you'll want to back up a little bit with the hands until you keep all that down. And if you feel like you want to try for grabbing the feet, you can. Inner edges of the feet's easier than outer edges of the feet. So if you never do inner edges of the feet, maybe you start there or try there. And if it doesn't work, then back up. Remember, it's yin, so we're trying to be gentle with this practice, even though we're deeply opening up joints, ligaments, connective tissue. And if you have the inner edges of the feet, maybe you grab the outer edges of the feet. Happy baby's a big pose. Sounds like it's easy, but your hips do have to be open. It can be challenging to hold for a longer amount of time. If you have the outer edges of the feet, grab the inner edges of the feet. Feel the difference there. If you have the inner edges of the feet, come back to the ankles. Of the ankles, come to the calves, backs of the thighs. Bring the knees in toward the chest. That was a deep hip opening. You can rock side to side. Set the feet down onto the mat and extend the legs out in front of you. Reach the arms overhead. Just press out through the arms and the legs, getting really long. Lengthening the tops of the hips, hip flexor area. And start to relax the legs. Bring the arms down by the sides. Palms turn to face up. You're in Shavasana. If this bothers your lower back, You can bring the soles of the feet to the mat out wide to the outer edges of the mat and let the knees touch. And that's always a good alternative to Shavasana with the legs extended out in front of you. Now you let go of the breath control. You start to come into stillness. Make sure you're not touching any props if you have them around you. You want them to be out of the way so that your body can totally relax and find a sense of letting go. Releasing, releasing anything you're hanging on to out through the soles of the feet. You'll start to wiggle the fingers and the toes, finding some movement in the body again. Walk the feet in, bending the knees if you haven't already. Reach the right arm overhead. Roll over to your right side. You can lie the head in the arm. Left arm can just rest on the side of the body. Bring the left hand to the floor in front of you and start to press yourself up to a comfortable seat. So it could be a cross-legged seat. It could be kneeling. You could be seated up on a prop. Keep the chest lifted, eyes closed. Bring the hands together in front of you. Bow the head with gratitude for making it to your practice today. And maybe setting an intention for what you need for the day ahead or evening ahead. Take a moment to honor and acknowledge your heart and spirit, as well as everyone around you. Bring the head up, blink open the eyes. Namaste. Thanks for sharing your yin practice today. I'll see you Thursday for flow. Thanks so much.